All right. This public meeting of the Board of Education's Teaching, Learning, and Enrollment Committee for December 11th, 2025 is called to order. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you all for being here. Today's agenda includes overview of our charter schools, report on Talented and Gifted, or TAG, services, and some information about Access Academy, and an update on Jefferson High School academic programming. First, we'll begin with introductions. My name is Rochelle Chase Miller. I am the committee chair.
Virginia LaForte, PPS Board of Directors from Zone 5, Northeast Portland.
Christina Howard, Senior Chief of Academics.
Mary Kane, Senior Legal Counsel.
All right, next we have public comment. Kara, do we have anyone signed up to speak? All right, please make sure when you begin your comments that you clearly state your name and spell your last name. You will have 2 minutes to speak. We ask that once you hear the sound of the alarm go off, please wrap up your comments.
I'm going to call them in two groups. The first group will be Emily Barrett, Emily Teplin Fox, Michelle Dewberry.
It's Emily, or is this on? Yeah. Emily Barrett, and it's spelled B-A-R-R-E-T-T. Hi. I'm Emily Barrett. I'm a parent of 2 students at Lamond French Immersion Public Charter School, and it's the K-8 Open Lottery District-wide IB World School. I'm speaking on behalf of a working group of parents, some of whom are here, in asking for a single high school to be identified and approved as the pathway for these public school students. We want to support keeping kids in public school, in PPS, when heading to high school. Since 2021, Lamond has been losing approximately 35% of their 8th graders to private school. Just under 5% was moving out of district. Most remain residing in PPS. Continuing French study was named as a priority when discussing the transition to high school by every parent at the monthly parent coffee hour just last week. This request does not preclude students from attending their neighborhood school if they prefer. It does provide an option for their continued study of French. We've met with the Charter Schools Administration, some PPS high school staff, and the dual language immersion program staff, and each of those routes has suggested that we present our request to board committees. And so we'll reach out following this public comment to you and to the multiple pathways to graduation directors, just to hear feedback and ideas. Currently, 5 PPS high schools offer French classes, and our request is for your approval of Lamond students to be routed, if they choose, to the school that offers up to French 9-10, which is more than what the other 4 schools offer. We want to keep more students in PPS for high school, and we want to provide them ongoing language study at the highest level that's currently available. And lastly, we want to contribute to the goals of PPS Reimagined. There's part of that is increasing the number of students reaching at least one post-secondary readiness benchmark, and one of those is a seal of biliteracy. We want to be part of that goal, and these students are set up to achieve a seal of biliteracy if they can access ongoing language study, fulfilling our district's vision of students as influential and informed global stewards. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to connecting soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emily Fox. Opportunity hoarding is a well-studied phenomenon in which wealthy and middle-class parents manipulate public education so that their kids receive the best academic opportunities, often in racially segregated environments. High school boundary drawing is a common avenue of opportunity hoarding, but I'm here to talk about another one, Access Academy. My house is on the dividing line between 2 under-enrolled elementary schools, Sabin and Irvington. In my zip code alone, 31 kids went to Access last year. It was almost 10% of the whole school population. Every morning when I drop my child off at Sabin, I walk by groups of diverse kids walking into their neighborhood school, and then I pass by the taxpayer-sponsored bus that is transporting kids to Access. Last year, PPS spent $1.2 million moving kids out of their neighborhoods to Access. Generally, Access admission is based on a lottery open to students who score in the 99th percentile on a standardized test given at school. But Parents can also pay for their child to take any one of several alternative eligibility tests. And all access students are allowed to go to Grant High School. Hearing all that, can you guess the demographics of access? This past year, 75% of access students came from Portland's 11 wealthiest zip codes. And it served a single student who identifies as Black and 0 who identify as Native American. While the percentage of white students at PPS has declined, it has markedly risen at access. I hope we can all agree that if there exists something like intellectual giftedness, it occurs at the same rates among different racial groups and different socioeconomic classes. How do you square that with access? No other district in Oregon meets its tag obligations in this way. PPS should audit Access Academy and assess whether an expensive standalone school with a population representing some of the most well-resourced families in our district is the best way to handle tag. Please stop opportunity hoarding. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Dewberry, Dubary, and I'm the mom of 2 7th graders at Ockley Green Middle School. I am one of a group of parents, including Emily, who circulated a petition advocating for PPS to close Access Academy and redirect $4 million in funding back to neighborhood schools. I want to address 3 common misperceptions about Access. First is that Access primarily serves children with disabilities. PPS's own data shows that Access serves a smaller proportion of kids with disabilities than the district as a whole. Access also has a strikingly low SPED staffing level, suggesting lower support needs than neighborhood schools such as Boise Elliott, Woodlawn, Lee, and Sabin, who have student populations that are roughly equivalent to Access, but have 3 to 4 times as many SPED FTE. The criteria for acceptance to Access is a test score. There is a mountain of evidence showing that standardized test scores reflect opportunity, class, and racial privilege. Second, some claim gifted children cannot be served in their neighborhood schools because they are bored or not challenged. Students of all abilities are bored at school all the time, every day. Part of what school teaches children is how to be bored, how to be patient and respectful, and maybe even helpful when their classmates are struggling. Moreover, money spent on Access could be used to provide resources to teachers and schools to meet the diverse needs of students in the classroom. Third, many Access proponents say that the wait list for Access points to a need to expand rather than close Access. Access is only serving 8% of PPS's tag identified students, while the other 92% receive virtually no tag programming. Expanding Access would harm our neighborhood schools by perpetuating the existing racial and socioeconomic segregation. We are asking the board to audit Access Academy. We're interested in a research project comparing educational outcomes of children who attend Access with children who were eligible or children who applied and didn't get in. And we think this could guide the board's decision making in future years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jocelyn Haley Cambier.
Good evening. I'm Jocelyn Haley Cambier, last name Cambier. I am a parent from Rose City Park, the Vietnamese dual language immersion program. Our first graders are still suffering and need a second teacher. But what I want to talk about tonight is the school continuous improvement plan. We recently went from a 21-page document with data and measurable metrics to a 4-page corporate word salad that amounts to thoughts, prayers, and vibes. And I want to know what happened to the data, who approved the new school continuous improvement plan, why isn't there a translated version available for our Vietnamese-speaking families? Where is the transparency and accountability? The new continuous improvement plan basically relies on internal assessments and a lot of 3-letter acronyms that are unintelligible to most of the parent community. So this is only going to aid in continuing our slide to the bottom of national literacy rates. How can we determine our shortcomings and progress if we don't use data and facts? On a personal note, my first grader not only is still in an overcrowded classroom with an overwhelmed teacher, she just got referred at the end of November for speech assessment and reading intervention, which means she's missed 2 months of this intervention. So how many other students in this class are falling through the cracks? Also, our school climate plan states that there are supposed to be monthly climate team meetings that provide an opportunity for family involvement and feedback. How many have we had? Nobody knows. There have been 0 announcements of any climate team meetings. There was a restorative justice circle for an incident in VDLI 4th and 5th grade. It did not include the school climate specialist, the counselors, or any of the affected students. We've asked the principal and the superintendent to move the climate specialist into the classroom, but the only response we have received is avoidance and silence. We desperately need a second teacher for the classroom, and at this point, the climate specialist position is just a promotion without any functional benefit for the student body. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to provide your comments. Our first topic is an update on charter schools. Introducing this topic is Christina Howard, Senior Chief of Teaching and Learning.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Dr. Isaac Cardona and team to come up and share this presentation, and he will do introductions from there. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Isaac Cardona, the Chief of Schools, and I have with me today both Karina Wolf, the Senior Director of Schools, overseeing MPG, which is Multiple Pathways to Graduation, and Tanita Sandos, the Director of Charter Schools. And I'll hand it over to them.
Good afternoon, board directors. We're excited to be here this afternoon to share with you a general overview of charter schools in Portland Public Schools, the role of a PPS as the sponsor or authorizer of charter schools, how we provide support and accountability within our charter school framework, share some information about funding and some information about student demographics, and then answer any questions you may have. In Portland Public Schools, we have, within the boundaries of Portland Public Schools, we have 7 charter schools. 5 of those are Portland Public School Board sponsored, and 2 of them are state sponsored charter schools. Of the 5 that the Portland Public School Board has approved, we have 3 K-5s. So we have the Emerson School, which centers a project-based learning approach and positive discipline approach. We have Kairos PDX Learning Academy, which 2 of our 5 charter schools are Title I. Kairos is one of our Title I schools. And their focus is on eliminating the racial achievement gap. We have Portland Arthur Academy, which is also a Title I K-5 charter school that focuses on direct instruction. We also have 2 K-8 schools. So we have Lamond French Immersion, and you heard from some of the families earlier. And we also have Portland Village School, which is a Waldorf-inspired school. The 2 state-sponsored charter schools are both K-8s. So it's the Cottonwood School of Civics and Science, which focuses on place-based learning, and the Ivy School, which is a Montessori model. And among the 5 PPS-sponsored schools, currently we have 1,303 students.
Good evening. I'm Sunita Sandos, and I'm going to speak a little bit about the role of the charter school sponsor or authorizer. As Karina mentioned, we have 5 schools under the umbrella of Portland Public Schools, in which the MPG Charter Schools Office is sort of holding responsibility for those 5 schools. And what those responsibilities are, our job is to approve or deny annual applicants for the establishment of new PPS charter schools, conduct ongoing monitoring, oversight, and annual evaluation of PPS charter schools, pass through state school funding, and we'll talk a little bit more about funding in a few minutes, and other funding sources, monitor the implementation of interventions for underperforming schools, provide resources, access to information and data systems, professional development, and cost-neutral assistance, advocate and act as a liaison for the district in its role as a charter school authorizer, and promote equity and learning for all students. We put together an annual calendar of deliverables to sort of explain the oversight that the PPS Charter Schools Office takes on in terms of support and accountability. When we're looking at our PPS charter schools, we're looking in three main areas, academic, fiscal, and operational, to assess the overall health of a charter school within PPS. For academic, the charter schools all submit a performance plan to our office every October that we review, and they have one academic, one fiscal, and one operational goal in that performance plan. And then in the fall, when report card data comes out, we do an analysis that helps us to create a performance framework in January that is about a 40-page document that takes a deep dive into data for the past 3 years for each of our charter schools in regard to academic, fiscal, and operational health. And then we look at local assessment data reporting back from the schools, sharing information to compare with the report card and OSAS data that we received in the fall. And then we have a year-end report on charter schools to the PPS board committee in late spring, which gives an overall overview of the schools. In terms of fiscal, the schools are submitting quarterly financial reports to our office. They submit a draft budget for the upcoming school year in May, and then a finalized budget in September. And each year they're required to submit an annual municipal audit in the fall for the previous year. In regard to operations, our office is out at schools monthly doing site visits, and then once a year in the spring we do a formal annual site visit with stakeholders including teachers, families, community members, board members, etc. And then charter school board meeting observation and review. We're also attending board meetings in the winter and spring. Since charter schools have their own independent board of directors that serve as their governing body. And we're reviewing compliance submissions on a monthly basis. And then we wanted to detail a little bit more about support and accountability from our office and how there is or is not an overlap between our responsibilities from a district perspective when something arises at a charter school. So we just put together this little flow chart to explain an example of when a charter school family may have concerns with their school and they connect with their charter school administration, and that family may determine that they need additional support. So where do they go? So first and foremost, they're going to go to their charter school administration if they are looking for information on how to sort of escalate their issue and find out what the charter school's policies and procedures are, independent of what PPS policies might be. And then in addition, they may contact our office for more support at that time. The family will follow the charter school policies and procedures, which may include communication with the charter school's independent board of directors who serve as the governing body. And then the multiple pathways to graduation charter school's office. Our office will work in tandem with the charter school and the administration at the charter school to ensure that family concerns are appropriately addressed in a timely manner. And then just to kind of close that out, we're also making sure from our office that the school is following their own policies and procedures with fidelity. They're clear, they're accessible, and they're following those policies and procedures. And then at that point in time, families may also continue to seek support from our office if they're still struggling to resolve their issue.
Switching gears with regard to charter school funding, we're sharing the funding that we have for this current year. So Portland Public Schools, any district serves as the pass-through. And so we have approximately $19 million among the, and I should say also we serve as a pass-through agent for the state charter schools. So we have $19 million annually this year that's going to our charter schools. They submit monthly invoices and are paid accordingly. We have $1.3 million from the student investment account. Again, some of that information is set by ODE. And so that comes through our office. We have art tax for those students that are in K-5. Portland Public School students that are in K-5 receive arts funding. And among our charter schools, we have an equity allocation this year of $275,000 for the schools that qualify for the equity allocation. And so that's a total of $20.8 million in funding. Policies and board policies that guide us in that framework is in 2020, PPS Resolution 6069, the school board increased the pass-through rate to 95% for charter schools serving populations of 50% or greater historically underserved by race and ethnicity. And Resolution 6466, 2 years later in 2022, said that starting the following year in 23-24, schools would have a 90% pass-through rate for all students, for schools serving students less than 50% historically underserved by race and ethnicity. So those are two of the funding policies that guide us, in addition to state statute and how charter funding is laid out. And then lastly, we just want to share some demographic information.
I don't know how detailed you want me to get with this, but you're welcome to review it. We just wanted to give some numbers as of October 1 to share a little bit about the demographics of each of our charter schools in terms of the student population, and then included a comparison with PPS K-5 schools and PPS middle schools, since we have the 3 K-5 PPS charters and the 2 K-8 PPS charters. So that information is there for you to review.
And that's kind of our general overview, and then we're happy to answer any questions or comments.
Thank you so much for that. I have a few questions. I'm curious about the ongoing monitoring, oversight, and annual evaluation, and specifically when charters are underperforming, like what then?
Yeah, we follow statute and we follow the contracts that we have in place with our charter schools. And so when we're creating the performance frameworks, which is a 1-year look back, as we know, because we're assessing data from last year at this point in time in this year. And so I'll be putting together those performance frameworks. A charter school, in order to be put on a plan of improvement from our office within MPG, has to be underperforming as compared to the district in terms of those OSAS scores specifically for 2 years in a row to be put on a performance plan. So at this point in time, as of last year when we did our presentation to the board committee at the end of the year, we had no underperforming schools as compared apples to apples to district in regard to those test scores. If we do this year and moving forward, then we have to look at that over a 2-year period, and then that's when we would put a plan of improvement, in place for one of those charter schools. And that's not to say that we wouldn't be having conversations along the way, because we're all looking at the same data and we can see trends and get ahead of them as well.
And I just want to say that process is outlined in state statute around the timelines for performance plans. So we're following state guidance as we have that. I also just want to share, to Sunita's point, one of the things that happened during COVID is that we met with as charter school leaders as a community of practice previously prior to COVID periodically. But what happened during the COVID era was we went to a weekly charter school director meeting. And the charter school directors and our office have all kind of unanimously decided that they'd like to continue to meet weekly to talk about best practices, academic best practices, intervention best practices. And so we have a meeting with them every Tuesday morning, and we have a variety of, they will bring problems of practice, we will bring resources. Once a month, we have a program administrator from special education who will come and provide. A couple months ago, it was on dyslexia as an example. And so just really looking at what are the practices and how as leaders, just like we provide professional development for our district leaders, what is the professional development? What are the resources that they have that they're sharing with one another? It's not necessarily always that the district is providing the resource. Sometimes it's a community resource or a practice that they're working on with regard to how they're supporting each other as a network of practice. And then as we mentioned, then we're also out to the schools every month, just looking at what does practice look like and instruction look like in the variety of, their specific school models. But we're sharing kind of ongoing information. We're certainly sharing if and when and as we see concerns. And as Sunita mentioned earlier, when we hear concerns from families, directing them into what that looks like and how, and ensuring with leaders, supports that are available, how are families getting their needs met, and what are those opportunities, to problem solve along the way.
How would families know about kind of I appreciated the framework for escalating problems. How accessible is that to families?
That information is accessible to families either via the school's website, or everyone, all of the schools also have to submit annually to us their family handbook. So that information, we're checking to make sure that the escalation process is readily available to families and at their fingertips.
Okay, so I'm a little new to the charter school thing. I'm excited to learn about it. I was really excited that it was on the agenda. I'm sort of, for the funding structure, can you kind of tell me like I'm five? I'm seeing, so the funding pass-through for charter schools, state school fund is 19 million. How is that part and parceled out? Like, how do you decide what to spend per student in a charter school? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the state outlines that the minimum fiscal return reimbursement rate per student, per pupil, is 80% at the K-8 level and 95% at the high school level. And that's of net operating expense. And so every district every year has to determine the average cost it costs per student to educate in that district. And so then the state gives guidelines for different types of contracted schools about what those percentages of pass-through rates are. So the state says 80% for K-8s and 95% for high school. And the board, when looking at other districts and looking at and hearing talking about this issue in years past, has passed two board policies that we went over that, and so that's what guides us is board policy. So it's obviously in accordance with the state, but board policy is what guides how much we get each school gets per student per month.
And I guess one thing, and I appreciate you saying you're learning, and that question's a great question. One thing that I am coming out of being a leader at a charter school for a number of years, and one of the things that I'd love to just share with people who are learning about charter schools is that with that 90% pass-through rate, the charter school has to function essentially independently and autonomously. They're not only purchasing their own curriculum and health insurance plans for their teachers, but they have to secure a facility and pay market rate rent, or one of our schools has purchased a facility. But from that 90% of funds, per pupil funds, they also have to pay for a facility and find that facility and pay for it themselves as well.
Thank you.
And I just want to clarify, it's the percentage of the state school fund amount per pupil for
That's
charter
what I-
schools. Yes.
So the rest of the percentage comes from the general fund? Like the state school
Yes.
fund is the, okay, so I'm just.
So it comes from that other, comes from the other amount, that difference between the 80 and the 100, or the 95 and the 80 and the 100%, because it's all at K5 or K8 level. We don't currently have any charter high schools.
Can you talk a little bit about how we know that charters are compliant with ODE requirements? And I'm thinking specifically around equity stuff and ensuring like fair treatment and access for LGBTQ plus kids specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I think Karina spoke a little bit to the weekly meetings that we have where we're sharing resources and sharing information. At those meetings, I'm also always sharing, with the link included in our agenda, the access to ODE's charter school office hours, which happen on a monthly basis. And that connection that we've made with the charter school specialist at ODE. They have someone designated as a charter school specialist who's not only responsible for sort of the oversight in the same way that our office is responsible for our 5 schools. Their office is responsible for the 4 state-sponsored schools, 2 of which are in Portland. So we work with those schools a lot as well. But that charter school specialist, aside from the oversight of those 4 state-sponsored schools, is also responsible for disseminating all of the information that helps keep all of our charter schools meeting those the guidance that is being pushed out from ODE and is ever evolving, so that there is a streamlined way that they're receiving information from ODE through that office and then through our office to the schools and the school administration.
Thank you. I think I just have one more. Can you talk a little bit about kids with disabilities in charters and the way the district interfaces with the charter to support SPED kids?
Absolutely. I'll let you take that one.
Sure. So the only Portland Public Schools employees that are in our charter schools is our special education teams. So we have in the assignment of staff from within our special education department, there is an assignment of staff of our school psychs, our learning center teachers, our paraeducators, our speech and language pathologists, at the same ratios that we have in all our schools. And so those are Portland Public Schools employees, and so they are charged that they're performing in the same way that they're performing in others. The expectations are the same as the expectations in other schools. And so we also have, that's where we do, and I referenced earlier, that's one of the areas that the charter school office or the MPG and the multiple pathways office has a lot of collaboration, is with our with our special education department. And so as an example, Maria Giannotti is the assistant director of special education for elementary. And so she is a resource that we connect with quite often. And she also is hearing from families. She's the one who's supervising the special educators that are in our charter schools.
And we didn't mention this. We've mentioned these weekly meetings. They're something that we've really focused on in these past few years. And Maria has been a great collaborator with us, and she pushes into those meetings once a month to provide guidance and charter-specific PD for the team of administrators who come to those meetings, which has been great.
I'll also just say one more thing, which is when Sunita and I are going out to the charter schools to meet with the charter school leaders and observe classrooms, if there are challenging situations, we will collaborate, and sometimes we will go together and have some conversations, family meetings, staff, case management meetings around supports and resources and planning for our students involved in enrolled in special education.
Okay, I kind of lied. I have one more question, I think. When I asked about performance, and you mentioned that we look at how a charter is doing in comparison to the non-charter schools in the district, what do we know about how kids who are historically underserved tend to perform in charter schools, and what the outcomes are, and if there's a disparity between their experiences in the charter versus in just regular PPS programming?
We're looking at the disaggregated data certainly when we're putting together the framework, so we'll be sharing those with you at the end of the year, and you'll be able to unpack for each of the schools in that regard and really dig into the data in that way, which is quite helpful. One of the things that I want to go back to, just in terms of thinking about an underperforming school, another place that we kind of lean into that, I mentioned the performance plan. I digress for just a moment, but the performance plan that a school is putting together at the beginning of a school year, we have access to embargoed data at the beginning of the school year, even when it hasn't gone out for public consumption later in the fall. And so that is an opportunity in very early on for our office to say to a school, hey, you're getting ready to put together that performance plan for September 30th due date to our office. Probably you should be looking at the data, this particular data set in regard to your academic goal for the year. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that up, that we have that opportunity as well to sort of help move the process along. But it sounds like you were
Every school also has localized assessments, so we're also having conversations around what assessment data looks like overall, and then with regard to individual racial and ethnic groups and different communities of learners. So we are continuing to have those conversations and talk about, again, from a coaching stance and from a data review stance, around what are the resources, what is, each school, given their individual school model. Not every school is going to do it the same because they're going to do it in the framework of their school model. But so our conversations are respecting your school model. What does that look like to, to serve for math instruction for third graders? What does it look like for, first grade literacy? So we're having specific conversations around specific groups of community of learners with each school as we go through. And the overall answer to your question is it varies, right? Is that it varies from year to year, and it varies from school to school, and that's where we're doing the ongoing work. Our job is to do the ongoing work throughout the school year, like actually on a 12-month calendar with schools. And then we have kind of the state guides us in their framework around when we put people on formal performance plans and what that looks like. But just like any other of our schools, we don't want to get to that place. So we want to do as much proactive as we can.
I should never say that's my last question. I always have more questions. Does charter school test data roll up with the rest of the district?
Yes.
Yes.
So given that, are charter schools, like I know they purchase their own curriculum and some have their own philosophies and pedagogy and whatnot, but do charter schools have to do things like science of reading, for example?
They do not have, go ahead.
Go, please.
They do not have to do the things that because they are their own organizations, they have latitude and autonomy around things such as the science of reading. So there are times when they ask and we work to see if it's possible to include teachers. One of the things just is in statute is charter schools. The reason for charter schools in part is for them to be learning labs for districts. And so we also want to look at the expertise that charter schools have in a particular area and how we can learn, kind of that the learning can go in all directions. I will also say that that some schools will request and look at how can they utilize or participate with a variety of kind of different materials that we have. So that is also one of the things that we are able, because when we pass bonds, we talk about services and supports they vary from bond to bond, but we talk about them specifically available to all PPS students. And so that might vary depending on the school model and the school and the kind of our level of resource as well.
Thank you. Okay, I think I'm really done this time. Thank you so much. That was
We
great.
appreciate the questions.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, next is a presentation on tag services and Access Academy. Christina, would you like to introduce this item?
Sure. We have Dr. Emily Glasgow here, who's the Senior Director of PK 5 at Core Academics, and Darcy Soto, who is our Director of Learning Acceleration. We will end with Dr. Cardona.
Hi, I'm also going to like to welcome Erin Ferguson, the principal of Access Academy. And so we'll be able to answer questions at the school level or the district level for TAG or about Access.
Give us 1 second to adjust that. I'm sorry. It's a little slow. Okay. Good afternoon. I think we're still afternoon, maybe good evening. I'm Emily Glasgow. I'm the Senior Director for Pre-K 5 Academics, which includes overseeing K-12 talented and gifted programming. We're going to, we already introduced who's here. We're going to talk today about the identification of TAG students, programs and services for TAG students, rights of families of TAG students. Our Director of Learning Acceleration, who oversees TAG, Darcy Soto, will talk about those 3 buckets. And then we'll pass to Access Principal Erin Ferguson to talk about Access Academy, which is related to, but not the same as, talented and gifted programs. So I'm going to pass to Darcy, and she's going to get into the meat with you.
Thanks, Emily. Good afternoon, directors. The organization of the contents of the presentation is organized in terms of the Division 22 requirements that are associated with talented and gifted services for the district. So I have a summary here of, we're going to start with identification, sort of as a natural start to our presentation. And the piece that I want to highlight here is that our Division 22 requirements, these are the Oregon administrative rules that really dictate how tag services are provided, including tag identification. And an important note is that several years ago, just around pandemic time, 2020, 2021, these Oregon administrative rules were modified. And so there's a real shift in terms of tag identification. Previously, tag identification was really tightly associated with a percentile score on a nationally normed assessment. And the new OARs really shifted that focus to a more holistic look at a student. and that we have 2 requirements in order to identify students for TAG services. They are that a student demonstrates exceptional performance when compared to applicable developmental learning progressions, i.e. their peers, and that they require differentiated instructional services or programs. And so I want to underscore that because it's really the crux of TAG identification. Sometimes we get confused about a student being identified for TAG because they have a high score on an assessment. And if that student is showing, really typical growth and thriving in the classroom without additional needs, that student should not be identified for TAG services. So it's a dual requirement, and it's important that we meet that requirement of our Division 22. So we are in corrective action and have been for the past several years with the Oregon Department of Education, and we work closely with them to meet the requirements of that corrective action. That corrective action will continue through the fall of 2027. So as part of that corrective action in terms of identification for students, we are required to provide an annual training for all licensed staff. That includes administrators, counselors, and all teachers. Those who have responsibilities for identifying students for TAG services. So we're talking about all licensed staff in our school buildings that provide TAG services. And that we keep and track that data and provide it in an annual report. As far as what our procedures are for identification of TAG students, we start with a universal screener. It's applied to all first grade students. This year, that was a shift. It was for second grade students, and so we've moved that down to first grade to hopefully identify students earlier who may not be otherwise identified. That universal screener is a nonverbal assessment that is administered to all first graders. This year, it's administered to all first and second graders to catch that, so there's no gap. In addition, we administer that screener to all newcomer ELD students who are speakers of other languages and are coming into the district and into the country within the last 3 years. Those two types of screeners can trigger a referral process, and a referral may be submitted by staff, family, or the student themselves. And so that identification process that's linked on the slide, and I'll have it, there's the visual in the next slide, provides all of the requirements of Division 22 and also meets the requirements of the new legislation that was passed during the last legislative session. And includes a couple of different elements. Emily, if you could back one.
That one?
Yep.
We're out of order. Sorry.
Okay. Infographic. This is available publicly on our website and on our TAG posters in all of our schools. So this is a new process this year to meet the new requirements based on that legislation. So it's an 8-week process and can happen anytime from the start of the school year until April 15th, which is about 8 weeks from the end of the school year. Any referrals that were received in that time, they may be completed in the new year. It includes a request for that evaluation that happens either from the family, or that referral is initiated through the universal screener. And then families get notified, and they get a request for a reflection on their students' progress and needs. A reflection also goes to the teacher. And then there's data that's gathered, and the school team, who is the TAG facilitator and the principal, makes the determination. And we, as the TAG office, provide that notification to the family, including a notice of their rights and information on personalized education plans. And then we support teachers and TAG facilitators with developing those plans. This is our 25-26 data that we can provide as of today. We have on that requirement to provide training to all of our licensed staff, we're at about 76%. And then the information in the tables below are populations of current TAG identified students by demographics, and then also by areas that they are identified. Many of our students are identified in all three areas, those being reading, math, and intellectual giftedness. So there are a total of 7,675 students in the district who are tag identified, which is about 19% of our overall population. There we go. Moving on to programs and services for tag students. Again, I want to highlight that our Division 22 requirements and org administrative rules really help spell out what tag services should be. And it's a really different look than what you and I may remember from when we were in school. I was a tag student. I went to a special class. It was very fun. That would be great for all students. And our Department of Education and our Oregon School Board have, when we changed these Oregon administrative rules, it was really a focus of the needs of students. So tag services is more akin to a 504 plan or an IEP addressing the needs of students with differentiated instruction than it is to a special program or a special class. So I just want to sort of like underline that tag services, ideally, a student is not even aware that they are receiving tag services because that differentiation is happening in the classroom and their needs are being met without them needing something additional. So as part of our corrective action, we're providing annual training that is embedded with the annual training on identification. So those things happen at the same time. We also, as part of that corrective action, have to have opportunities for district office administrators, that's myself and my team, to observe rate and level instructional practices within our schools. And that is a thing that we do and as part of our instructional walks. And that we keep data on the licensed staff who have been trained and posted in our annual report. One thing we've been working on this year in terms of procedures for tag services are personalized education plans. All families of tag students have a right to request a personalized education plan, and we have this year really put in some time and effort on providing robust training for tag facilitators and teachers on how to write a personalized education plan and how that serves students. So that's part of our efforts that are also reflected in the narrative of the corrective action plan. As I mentioned, tag services are largely provided in the classroom through differentiation and at the secondary level through course selection into AP, IB, and dual credit courses. I've included here a few slides that are part of our licensed staff training that help provide teachers with opportunities to practice how to plan for tag students, that we're thinking about the content area that we're teaching, the specific needs of the tag students and how to understand those needs, and then implementing and providing continual monitoring and support. These are some examples of tag services in our district, both in the classroom, and then we do have district and school processes and programs. They are not limited to tag students. It's important to note that any student can go through what is called whole grade or single subject acceleration. Any student is able to, of course, take advanced coursework. And Access Academy, although it is mostly tag students, it's not a requirement to be a tag student, tag identified student. Again, this is the information about personalized education plans, and our program administrator, Diana Kruger, has done a lot of work in going out to schools and providing in-person training for staff on how to write those plans and support students. Finally, part of our Division 22 requirements for TAG is to ensure that families of TAG students know their rights and that we're meeting those rights, those requirements. We inform parents of the identification decision. They are able to opt out. They are able to provide input. Again, we're really encouraging that personalized education plan. People are probably getting sick of me saying personalized education plan in almost every meeting, but it's really important that we get that information out there to our licensed staff and so that they can provide those services in a way that is aligned with the students' needs and goals, and also that we're documenting that really well and ensuring that plan follows the student through their K-12 experience. So as part of the corrective action, we provide a slide deck that is created by central office staff and then implemented during back to school nights. We also, as a team, have gone out and provided that training ourselves at the request of schools, and then also developing a plan for communicating with families, which is part of our tag plan that's posted on the website. I think you can move to the next slide. Oh, that's it.
All right.
I'm going to hand it off to Aaron.
Okay. My name is Aaron Ferguson. I'm the principal of Access Academy. Access Academy is a program that's part of Portland Public Schools that's designed to be flexible in a way that allows us to meet the specific educational needs of highly gifted students. We serve students in grades 2 through 8. One of the best ways to kind of illustrate what that looks like is with the way that we serve our students' needs around math. So when we're making the schedule for Access, when we're sitting down in the spring to create the schedule for the new year, we start with math. So the middle school schedule, the elementary school schedule, the special schedule, the lunch schedule, all revolves around making sure that all of our students are able to take the math that is right for them. So it's pretty typical at a PPS middle school or a PPS K-8 for there to be one section at least of algebra for students in 8th grade who are ready to take algebra. At Access, we have 3 sections of algebra. We have 2 sections of geometry. This year we have 1 section of advanced algebra. Some years we go up higher than that in terms of the sections that we offer based on the specific needs that we're projecting for our students for the coming year. And then our entire schedule is built so that regardless of what grade you're in, you can go to the class that you need. So that means that we have, regularly elementary school students who are taking middle school math, middle school students taking high school math, and often we have at least a few elementary school students who are taking high school math. 86% of our students are accelerated by at least 1 year in math. A little bit more than half are accelerated by more than that, meaning that they are more than 2 years above their grade level in math. And having that flexibility, having that schedule that is designed in that way, allows them to go and be in a math class with, a mixed age group of people, often folks who are their same grade, who are in their same math level, and to be able to learn the math that's right for them along with their peers. Math, that's just one example with math. There are other ways in which we do acceleration with the other course areas, but math is the clearest example. Do you want to go to the next slide? We serve 325 students, more or less. I think we're a little bit above that right now in grades 2 through 8. Enrollment is by lottery process. We offer a enrollment preference to siblings of current students and economically disadvantaged students. The application window opens in mid-February and closes in March, and then we offer students spots in the spring. We do information sessions for families that are considering applying, and then visits for students who have been offered a spot. Our students come from all over the city. If you look at the heat map of where our kids are coming from, it's well represented across the city. There are 62 different home schools that our kids are coming from. This year we enrolled 75 new students, and there are 415 kids who were put on the wait list.
So I think that's all that we have to present. We know you probably have questions. So we'll open up to those now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for putting this on the agenda. I used to sit on the TAG Advisory Council, so this one is in my wheelhouse, unlike charter schools. So it has changed a little bit since, back in the day in my world. So in terms of identification, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. Every first grader, and I understand it's first grade and second grade this year, but every first grader is screened.
Yes.
But in order to be designated TAG, it's not just the screener, it's also working with the educator in the room to actually make that referral. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm
in
understanding
fact,
that correct. Okay.
By Oregon statute, a tag identification cannot be based solely on a test
Solely on
score.
school. Okay, great.
That second part isn't required, though, to be eligible for the Access Lottery.
Do you know, so that referral is happening with the educators. So we've correctly, it would be by the educator. I'm just wondering if the breakdown, we were talking a little bit, we had some public comment about demographics for access in particular. Is it possible that we haven't, that the root cause is what's happening in the referral process in terms of missing students?
So I want to be clear to separate these two items because tag services and tag identification is part of our Division 22 requirements. It's part of our student civil rights. Access Academy is a program that meets the needs of students who meet eligibility criteria, and it is based solely, eligibility is based solely on a test score, which is the exact opposite of tag identification. And so I want to be clear on that point, that our data for the number of tag identified students that we have and disaggregated by race and ethnicity is closer to what you might expect in terms of the number of students in each of those groups that are identified. Giftedness is a trait that is that shows up equally among all demographic groups, and what we see in our data is that we have over-identification is a larger issue than under-identification. Giftedness shows up in about 5 to, at a really high end, 15% of students. It's really around like 5 to 11%. And so when we look at these demographics, what we see is that we are over-identifying certain groups of students and under-identifying by a small percentage other groups of students. When we talk about Access Academy, because the assessments that a student can qualify for the lottery eligibility on does not only include the assessment that is around intellectual giftedness, but also includes assessments that are specific to reading and math. A student may qualify and have that 99th percentile score for reasons other than intellectual giftedness, if that makes sense. So they may be exceptionally skilled in a particular area, and that shows up on a 99th percentile score on a MAP test, for example.
That was really helpful. Is there, and I just thought of this while you were talking, differentiation. Is there data that's available? I'm not saying that you would have it right this second, but data available on the effectiveness of differentiation in classrooms for tag students?
At sort of the national research level?
Yeah, like how do you know it's working?
Yeah.
Having been the parent of a kid in a class where, it's...
I mean, yes, that data is available, and through a large sort of like national research base, we can certainly provide some resources. What I would say is that how do you know it's working is that students are growing and meeting typical growth and meeting and exceeding that growth. Students who experience giftedness, if they are not receiving if they're not receiving instruction at their rate and level of learning, which is the language that's embedded in our statutes, they're not going to be making growth, right? They end up staying in one place. They stagnate, right? And so that is our best measure of success, is growth.
One of the questions I asked the email, I just wanted to bring up because it came up during the public comment, the opportunity for access specifically for families or parents to pay for other tests to qualify. And it looks like that 93% of our access students are coming to access via PPS administered tests, not outside sources. Does that sound right?
Let me and certainly, Erin, if you have a comment, but the entry into access is managed by 3 departments or 3 areas. The tag department identifies the criteria and also notifies families who are determined to be eligible for the lottery based on district adopted assessments. And then our enrollment and transfer department runs the lottery. And then at the school level, Erin assists with where there are openings and the sort of onboarding process for students. access eligibility is for all students within PPS boundaries, which includes students who do not attend PPS schools. So I want to be clear that parents of families who live in our boundaries are eligible for access, and they don't have access to district adopted assessments because they do not attend a PPS school. So those families would need to provide outside assessments. Those assessments just need to meet the nationally normed criteria and be on the list of assessments that we provide. And some families have their students assessed through other means, through identification and evaluation by outside professionals as well. But it is a small percentage.
That's really illuminating. Thank you.
Can I add as well? And you can tell me if I'm talking out of turn here, but I think that also in my time at Access, I've seen the tech department making moves specifically to just like create more equity around that testing. Like I think that the move from second grade to first grade for NNAT provides a lot more equitable access to that kind of testing for our first grade students who might be considering coming to Access for second grade. Also proactively notifying all families of students with a qualifying score in the entire PPS system who would be eligible to enroll at Access are both things that we're doing specifically to make sure that the folks who can pay for a test don't have an advantage over any other PPS student.
I have another question. I have a question for you. I was just thinking, so when we talk about highly gifted students, we talk a lot about math because it is the easiest for anyone to kind of understand like how that would be implemented. Can you talk a little bit maybe about science or reading, like how, because I've had the experience of seeing students come into my son's high school that are taking sophomore, junior level classes in science, for example, like how does that happen for a student at Access?
Sure. And Dr. Garcia is here if you want to ask him more about it later. At Access, what we found worked best for our population is that we do the science curriculum for the grade above, the grade that our student is in, and then provide the same kind of differentiation and scaffolding that we would for anything else to be able to make sure that every kid in the classroom can be successful in that. The vast majority of our students take high school physics in 8th grade and finish middle school with a physics credit. In the humanities, it looks a little bit different. In the humanities, the standards are a little bit different. The progression of the standards are different. And so in the humanities, we're really looking more at how can we supplement that curriculum? How can we go deeper? How can we push the rigor around it? If you want to see what that looks like at the end of 8th grade, I would love to have you come and visit when we do our National History Day presentations, and you can see kind of where all that additional work that we do in the humanities shows up in those projects at the end of 8th grade.
I will take you up on that. I just think it's important to point out that a lot of the students in Access are accelerating. They're going above their grade level, another grade or two, not just in math, but in reading and science, in all of the areas. And I'm not sure how you could, I know we can do compacted math, in our neighborhood schools, but I'm not sure how you would do that, if it would even be possible otherwise. And I just think of, tag students, and I'm asking for some more data, but, we look at like 97 percentile, 98 percentile, 99 percentile. It's important, in my mind, to think of it, it's not an equal distribution. It's like climbing a hill where you're like 97, 98, but like the 99 is like the steepest part of the hill. And there is a real difference for those students in relationship to their peers. So I just wanted to point that out.
And it makes a difference when you're a 6th grader in algebra to have other 6th graders in your classroom who are developmentally in the same place and ready for that math.
Virginia hit some of my questions, so some of these might piggyback. What student groups do we have who are underrepresented in tag identification?
The data on the slide that's up now shows race and ethnicity data. I would have to, if we're looking for additional student groups, I need to pull that and get it to you.
I guess my question is, like, just off the top of my head, I don't know what percent of our student population is Black or Latino or whatever to compare it up against. You see what I'm saying?
We can provide that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We can supplement this table.
Okay. I'm curious about how we're IDing kids in ways that are linguistically appropriate or culturally responsive, or responsive to kids who have disabilities. Given that for access, ID is solely test-based, and for tag, it is not solely test-based, but that is a part of it. So how are we working to catch kids who we know may not perform in a way on standardized tests that's reflective of what their skills are?
Yeah, the universal screener is a really big part of that process. The universal screener is a nonverbal assessment. It looks kind of fun. It's puzzles, and it doesn't include any language at all. Students are working to solve logic puzzles and move pieces around, and so it's a reasoning and logic-based assessment that is nationally normed and widely used to assess students for intellectual ability. And the administration of that assessment for all students in one grade every year helps us get to that. We automatically submit referrals for students who are at the 97th percentile or above. So the tag department submits those referrals, then the parent is notified and the school is notified, and the process continues. For students who score between the 80th and the 96th percentile, inclusive of those two ends, we notify schools and tag facilitators and encourage them to use another series of sort of like guiding questions to look at additional data points to consider a referral for those students as well. In addition to screening first graders, 3 years ago, we started screening all new ELD newcomer students. So these are students who would not have been in first grade here and may not be identified for tag services or identified for their intellectual giftedness because of a language barrier. And so those, we send proctors out to administer that same nonverbal assessment to all students in grades 2 through 12. And in this winter, we start with first graders who came to our schools late and may have missed the nonverbal assessment. So that's a big driver of how we are trying to capture additional students who may not otherwise be found for that identification or that evaluation process. And what I'll say about the rest of the referral process is that the new legislation that passed requires school districts to accept referrals year-round. And I think that's a really great move by our state legislators to keep that open so that we're not creating barriers to access for students based on a timeline. And again, a reminder that a tag identification doesn't require any assessment to be at any score. We always look at assessment data as part of a tag identification, but it may in fact be that a student has really strong performance in the classroom and really low scores on assessments. And that is also a key piece of information, right? Or a student is disengaged and has high scores. There's all kinds of different ways that we use tools and checklists and sort of rubrics to help understand how a student may be performing and whether or not their performance and behavior and how they show up in the world may be associated with giftedness.
Thank you. That makes a ton of sense. So now I'm curious about the access piece of that. I was really struck by the demographic numbers and curious about the underrepresentation for girls and kids of color. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's like clearly a lot of work to do in that area, and it has to do with our eligibility criteria and our admissions process. And I think that it's something that I know that it's something that my predecessor was working with the district on, and that I continue to work with the tag office on, as has already been said, giftedness is something that cuts equally across all groups. We should have proportional representation to the rest of PPS at Access, and so that is an ongoing project and something that we need to continue to work on.
I'll just to chime in on that. Part of the work that we're doing in that direction is we have an administrative directive that we're drafting for all tag services that includes the how on, so the tag department is responsible for determining that eligibility criteria, and we don't have a lot of codified guidance on how to do that. So what amounts to is a continuation of a process that has been established many years ago that is continuing to have similar results. And so writing into that administrative directive a process that includes community voice and professional voice from our staff at Access to help us understand that eligibility criteria and how we may need to shift that to toward those goals that we have jointly.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to piggyback on that because I was wondering about the same thing. As far as the proportional representation goes, do you know, and I do try to send my questions in advance. I did not send this one in advance. I apologize. But for the proportional representation, for all the kids that do score, since it's specifically a test score, the 99th percentile, within those test scores of those who qualify, is there proportional representation? Do we know?
I don't know.
A proportional representation of
our student demographics, like our Black students, our white students, our Asian students.
Yeah, we would have to do further digging.
We would, and
yeah.
We'd have to do some additional data work on that. But I also, just as a note, that the eligibility criteria that's available at that link there, there's a long list of assessments, and they are all with different purposes. And so it would be challenging to do an apples to apples comparison on that. And we can get more into that.
I was curious, bear with me as I try and ask this question, of families that do private testing to test into Access, do we know if there's proportional representation there to families that are not in PPS schools right now? Does that make sense? Like, do we know how many of those families that are using private testing are doing it because they don't have access to the testing we do in PPS, and how many of them are already in PPS and are choosing to go a private route for whatever reason?
That is data that is available. It's not data that we currently have, but we could provide that. Yeah. I want to say we could provide that for the current year. Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but do you know whether the new OARs have resulted in an increase of kids who are considered historically underserved in Tag ID?
In PPS specifically?
Sure. If you knew for the state, that would be cool too. I don't know.
I don't think the answer to that question matters about my response, which is, again, I think that we could provide you with that data. We don't have it today. But I think what you're talking about is a comparison of the number of students who are newly tag identified in each year following the change to the OARs. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah. That's certainly something that could be provided. We would just need some support from our colleagues. Yeah.
Do you have any more questions?
two more. I think they're quick. So so Access is an academic program. Can you give some examples of, it's not a focus option, which is why I try to explain that to people, like it's not the same thing as an academic program. Can you give an example of what another academic program might be within PPS?
Pioneer School
That's
would be
what I
another academic program, and so it students from there are district students, but they go physically to that school building.
And then would it be fair to say, I'm talking about the acceleration that a lot of these students have across, multiple subjects, that, I think of, I'm older, when I was younger, kids, they skipped grades, right? Would you say this is sort of similar? Like a lot of students, in Access are grade skippers. Not bad. I'm just saying, like, it feels like that because I've seen them come into, like I said, into the high schools where they're coming in, having taken high school physics. They're way ahead of math. Their writing skills, like it's
part of why Access works is that it allows us to have students access the academic curriculum that is right for them in a way that is the right mix for them. For most students, they aren't going to be in the same place. In math, they aren't even going to be in the same place in the different parts of reading. And part of what the design of Access allows us to do is it lets us get students instruction at the appropriate rate and level in all those different places. And it allows them to do it in a way that also, I think supports their social development, in being able to, connect with, other kids that have, similar stuff going on that are the same age, and that they can, move through those things together, and they could be in algebra at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then they can be a third grader at recess.
And we do also have policies and practices for students not at Access who may need either whole grade or single subject in math acceleration.
I think it's what you're pointing out in terms of like being with your peers. Like, with these students, often there are issues with, social isolation, perfectionism, sensory processing disorders, all those things. Sometimes those things are often not identified till much later for these students, and it gets them in an environment where they, the peer group can be really, really important. It's always important.
Yeah.
But it can be the difference between,
Yeah,
significant
absolutely.
mental issues.
Okay, I think that's it for us. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next on our agenda is an update on academic programming at Jefferson High School. On Monday night, the board had a listening session at Jefferson High School to hear reactions to Dr. Armstrong's proposal for an enrollment scenario for Jefferson. One theme that kept coming up was a desire to know more about what academic offerings students can expect when they start their high school careers at Jefferson. Chief Howard, would you like to introduce this topic?
Sure. We have Margaret Calvert coming up and Dr. Philippe Riestich coming up to present.
Good afternoon, Chair Committee, Chair Chase Miller, and Director Ford. My name is Philippe Riestich, and I'm proud to serve as the Senior Director for Secondary Academics. I'm pleased to be here today to share some initial ideas for expanding academic programming at Jefferson High School. As Jefferson prepares for modernization and a potential shift to neighborhood-based enrollment model, we have a historic opportunity to honor its legacy while designing a coherent college and career preparatory academic program. What we are presenting today reflects early concepts. We will continue deep engagement with students, families, staff, alumni, and community partners to shape a shared vision for Jefferson's academic future. Jefferson has a long and proud history of academic success and community partnerships. Last year, 85% of Jefferson's graduates earned 3 or more advanced credits, well above the district average, and the school's graduation rate exceeds both the district and the state. This strong foundation gives us the opportunity to build on what's already working and expand access to rigorous, engaging learning experiences for all students. Beginning in 2026, Jefferson will undergo a major modernization. At the same time, PPS is considering sunsetting dual assignment, which will stabilize enrollment and allow Jefferson to operate as a comprehensive neighborhood high school. These two forces, modernization and the sunsetting of dual enrollment, create the conditions for Jefferson not to only match what other comprehensive high schools offer, but to expand beyond it. This work will be shaped collaboratively with students, families, staff, and other essential stakeholders. This slide highlights 4 key pillars supporting this emerging vision of academic programming for Jefferson High School. Each pillar is rooted in Jefferson's identity, its arts legacy, history of partnerships, and successful dual credit, while preparing students for future opportunities. First, our aim is to offer a coherent, sequenced college preparatory experience beginning in 9th grade. Instead of simply adding AP courses, we want to build a pathway that prepares all students for college-level work and experience. This may include universal pre-AP experience for all 9th graders, AP Seminar, AP Human Geography, or AP African American Studies as core 10th grade options, and a robust menu of AP and dual credit courses in 11th and 12th grade. We're also exploring senior capstone experiences on the PCC campus to support a smooth transition into post-secondary learning for our seniors. Second, modernization presents an opportunity to design CTE pathways aligned to Oregon's high wage, high growth, and high innovation sectors. Pathways will be co-designed with educators and students, of course, as well as industry partners and higher education institutions to ensure coursework reflects real skills and real opportunities. Students would engage in hands-on learning, dual credit work-based learning, and internship, as well as mentorships. Our goal is to prepare Jefferson students not only for jobs, but to be innovators, problem solvers, and contributors to Oregon's future workforce. Jefferson's art legacy is one of the strongest in PPS, as hopefully we all know. And we have an opportunity to build a visual and performing arts program that honors this history while expanding into contemporary creative fields. Alongside dance, music, theater, and visual arts, we're exploring technical theater, audio engineering, media arts and film, costume and apparel design, digital design, just to name a few. These are aligned with Portland's creative economy and with post-secondary programs at PCC, PSU, and PNCA. Last but not least, Pillar 4 is about developing partner-supported learning ecosystem. Jefferson has a longstanding partnership with PCC, PSU, OHSU, SEI, and other community-based organizations. The opportunity now is to move from multiple individual partnerships to a coordinated learning ecosystem. Partners would support mentorship, applied learning projects, research and field experiences, industry exposure, dual credit coursework, and work-based learning internships. This approach positions Jefferson not only as a school with strong partnerships, but as a regional hub where students move seamlessly between school, college, community organizations, and industry. We've already heard a great deal from students, families, and staff leading up to this point. This slide outlines the next phase of engagement and planning, running from December 25 to summer of 26. Our engagement efforts will include student focus groups and feedback sessions, staff engagement through the instructional leadership team, departments, and all staff meetings, family engagement through the PTSA and Site Council, as well as ongoing conversations with various partners. This phase will also include some key technical work. We want to establish a CTE design team, analyze youth science data to understand student strengths and interests, review modernization implications for academic programming, and finalize next year's course catalog so that students can forecast accurately. Next year, our engagement priorities include ensuring families understand whatever new offerings and supports might be in place, providing clear communication to students about pathways and other options. We want to gather early feedback to make adjustments and clarify partner roles for mentorships, internships, and dual credit. Next January, we will be forecasting for the 27-28 school year. And by that point, students and families will have a clear understanding of available AP, CT, visual and performing arts, and other elective courses. I want to close by saying that Jefferson has always been a place where excellence and possibility live side by side. As we move into this next chapter, we have a chance to honor that history while designing new opportunities worthy of the students who will walk through Jefferson's doors in the years to come. Thank you for being part of this journey, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Can you say a little bit more about advanced coursework for everybody?
Sure. I can start by saying that all of our high schools offer some combination of either AP and dual credit courses or IB and dual credit courses. AP stands for Advanced Placement. These are courses that are facilitated by the College Board. They provide a particular syllabus, a particular set of standards or learning outcomes. All of those courses have an exam associated with the course, typically in the spring. And students who earn a 3, 4, or a 5 on that exam are eligible to earn college credit. Different colleges have different expectations in terms of what cut score they accept for college credit. IB, on the other hand, is International Baccalaureate Program. It's a slightly different approach to providing college level or college preparatory coursework. And two of our high schools, Cleveland High School and Lincoln High School, have the IB program fully developed in those schools.
Can I add something? Yeah. Just, I think this is going to be really important for Jefferson families when we talk about the AP curriculum. How this is how a weighted GPA works. In order to, be above a 4-point, you have to get an A in an AP class. That's worth 5 points. That there are dual credit classes are not like that. So in order for Jefferson students to have like academic parity with other high schools, we have to have those AP offerings for them in order to, be competitive with, their peers, with, peers, other kids they're applying to colleges with, all those things, how important that AP pathway is. I didn't hear mention, I suspect, I'm curious how that AP roll-in is going to work, because like the AP Human Geo and those classes are the AP classes that the younger students take. But once we start getting into like AP Calc or AP Lang or AP Lit, how will that work for the juniors and seniors that are there as this new class rolls in? Will they have AP classes added? Will they have that added opportunity, or will those opportunities only start rolling in for the new freshmen as they cycle through? Am I making sense?
Sure. There are a few questions. Do you want to
I just want to address the question about weighted GPA, unless that was where you were going to go first.
Yeah, I was, but
Go ahead.
No, no.
I'll let you go ahead, and then I'll chime in as to the nature of weighted GPAs.
What I wanted to offer is that we believe that adding AP courses to Jefferson High School as it expands is an important addition. And I would want to emphasize that our dual credit courses are also very important and also college preparatory and carry a certain set of benefits that AP courses don't. So I think it's an important addition, and I also wouldn't want to de-emphasize the dual credit courses that are already at Jefferson and that have prepared students to be very successful after graduating from Jefferson High School.
And I would just add that when we look at weighted GPAs, this has been an ongoing discussion with the high school principals and a group that looks at policies and practices for the district as a whole. There are implications for weighted GPAs for a variety of reasons. Dr. Husich is on that team that is looking at what that looks like and what does that mean. The decision to weight GPAs and PPS came probably 15 years ago. And at the time, the conversation was solely about AP and IB. That's an internal decision that we made as a district. So I'm just going to say that's a policy that we framed. But it is part of the policies and practices group that includes counselors from across all the high schools and vice principals and principals across the high schools. What is different about dual credit is that this is a college transcript. So what students get when they are taking dual credit courses, whether it's through PCC, PSU, OIT, is that you actually have a college transcript. And when you apply to colleges, you apply with a high school transcript as well as a college transcript. So it is there's a longer conversation about weighted GPAs that I think, that's something that the academic team certainly can bring forward and have a conversation about how that impacts various pieces. What does that look like? Where are weighted GPAs looked at? Where are they not? I think that's part of a larger conversation. I would just say overall, the advanced coursework and what does that look like? The other piece that's different about dual credit versus pieces with AP or IB is that a large portion of AP and IB is based on testing, and dual credit is performance over time. So it is not attendance-based, it is academic performance-based, and it's tied to external validators such as they're called common course outcomes that happen with either PSU, with a higher education institution. So there's differences amongst what we look at with advanced placement. What does that mean? I think that it's a rich conversation to have with families to help understand sort of what does that look like and what does that mean as you move out of high school. So there's a high school experience, and then what does that look like beyond high school? What we do know, and working with the University of Oregon and the Oregon University system as a whole, is that students that complete dual credit courses in things called the transfer module actually persist and complete at Oregon universities at a much higher rate than other students.
And then Director LaForte, I think you also asked about how the courses would be sequenced or introduced.
Yeah, once we make the switch, are we making the switch for the first year of freshmen, or is it for all of the students? Are we going to make the switch to a college? Does that make sense? It's sort of like, is it half middle college, half comprehensive high school as we're rolling through this transition?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll just try to articulate some things that we're paying attention to. So one is we want to make sure that stakeholders are engaged and that we're having conversations with students who are both at Jefferson now and who will be at Jefferson to get a better sense of their interests, their passions, their curiosities. We also want to continue having conversations with staff and other partners. And so right now, Principal Shelton is going through a process with his staff to get ready for forecasting that students will do after winter break. And this is something that's happening in all of our high schools. They're finalizing their course catalog, which will include a list of courses that students will be choosing from, and they're already having conversations about what courses may be introduced next year that are new. And again, this is typical to what's happening in other high schools as well. One of the ideas that we're interested in exploring is the possibility of, instead of treating advanced coursework as an optional pathway for some students who choose to engage in that pathway, to make that the core experience at Jefferson High School. To say that starting in 9th grade, we have intentional pre-AP work built into all of our core classes, and that starting in 10th grade, advanced placement work is integrated in core social studies and or language arts, so that by junior year, students are taking multiple college level courses, combination of AP and dual credit. So that's a conversation that we're going to continue having with different stakeholders, and also to ask, well, if that is the direction that we want to move in, what might be the right course to introduce. We have some examples in some of our other high schools that are doing similar work. So for example, at Grant High School, all of the sophomores, all of the 10th graders take AP Human Geography as their core social studies class. That is the course that everybody takes. And there's intentional preparatory work that happens starting in 9th grade to make sure that all students are ready for that level of work. At McDaniel High School, all sophomores take AP Seminar as the core English class. And in 9th grade, all 9th graders take pre-AP to get ready for that level of work. And so what we have found from looking at data is that at schools that identify AP or IB for all, we have great examples at Lincoln and at Cleveland as well, starting junior year, where all juniors take IB courses at Lincoln and Cleveland, is that racial disproportionality that exists throughout the country and in many of our schools simply disappears when college level coursework is part of the core coursework. So just to identify those two examples as potential courses that may become part of the core Jefferson program, we're also looking into AP African American History as perhaps being part of the core social studies course at Jefferson High School.
And that builds on what is currently there at Jefferson. So currently, all juniors, their English language arts classes, reading and writing 115, which is aligned with PCC, their senior language arts class, and government and econ is connected to Portland State University. So it's a combination of those pieces. And what you'll see at any school that is offering a core class that is for all, that is in addition to sort of the interest-based pieces around advanced coursework that you'd see. So whether it's Grant also offers like NGSS biology that is a dual credit class for all juniors. So there's this combination of pieces that is like, is there something that every student in a school is going to have access to, and then where are the places that they can pursue interests and passions?
Has there been any conversation, you mentioned that the PPS policy is what weights the AP scoring. Has there been any conversation about weighting the dual credit coursework?
There's been a lot of conversations about why some of the advanced course is weighted and is not weighted. The decision about what to do about weighting it's been I don't know, Philippe probably knows, Dr. Eastich probably knows it more readily now, but this is an ongoing conversation, not only in PPS but nationally, about what is the role of weighting GPAs and class rankings. Both are of topics of they're very high energy topics right now across the nation, I would say.
I would love to come back and talk more about that if there's interest.
We would love to have you come
Great.
back and talk
Great.
about that.
Yeah.
I think, I can't see it's the final question. Learned that lesson. I've heard some chatter in the community when the idea of AP for All is raised that seem the way that it lands with me is like if everybody has AP, nobody has AP almost. And in hearing you talk about what Jefferson already offers, it's pretty clear to me that Jefferson already has some pretty robust academics. Can you speak a little bit to that idea about all kids being able to engage with coursework at this level and be successful?
Sure. I'm happy to start, and then Margaret, please jump in. We believe that all kids can engage in that level of work. We believe that all of our students are college ready and college capable, and should they choose to move in that direction after high school, we want to make sure that all of them have had the experience of what it's like to be a college level student. And so to Margaret's earlier point, dual credit for our students who take senior inquiry, for example, as their senior level English and government and econ class. These are students at Jefferson, McDaniel, and Roosevelt. They enroll in PSU as part of that class. They have a transcript from PSU. They go to PSU. They spend time in the library at PSU. They interact with the students at PSU. They have the experience of what it's like to be a student at PSU, and that class is co-taught by a professor from PSU, right? And so we know that students can do that at the senior level. We know that students can engage in college level coursework at the junior level, and we have examples from at least 2 of our high schools that our students can engage in college level coursework as sophomores as well. So I believe that Jefferson High School students can engage in college level coursework as sophomores as well, if we do a good job starting in 9th grade, if we do a good job in our feeder programs. And I know that our feeder principals are very eager to make sure that their kiddos are prepared for that level of work. And if we have a collective belief that our students can perform at that level as well. So it is kind of a brazen idea, but there are plenty of examples, I think, throughout the country of schools that are unapologetically committed to making sure that all students, not as an optional kind of sidetrack, not as an optional space for some kiddos, but that this is the expectation for all of our students. And so that's the idea that in many ways, or in more ways than one, has already been present at Jefferson High School. And now as we're expanding, adding programming, we want to make sure that we're not adding kind of piecemeal things, but that there's a coherent set of beliefs that is continuing to guide that development of the academic program.
I would say I would just add one piece to it as well, and I think that there has to be a commitment to saying there are concrete skills and thinking processes that we want students to engage in. What is the critical thinking that we want every student to engage in? And so when we look at what is the course that is for all, it's really important to look at what is the makeup of that syllabus. What are the types of thinking that are being asked? What is the reading and writing, as it may be, where students are demonstrating their understanding? Then you build the structures that support that development in time so that students are entering with a high likelihood of success, that it's not about access, it's literally about success. And then when students are in the courses, you have to really be thoughtful about what are the in the moment, real-time supports that are going to be needed in order to keep students engaged and moving towards the credit. And I think that it's both. So you have to do it prior and you have to do it in the midst of. And I think that it takes a lot of collaboration amongst teachers and working with students and building and families and building an understanding of what the expectation is, as well as what the supports will be. And I think that I remember when we made this decision at Jefferson to do senior inquiry for all in the senior year. It took, we really spent quite a bit of time laying out what the supports would be prior, what were the key writing outcomes that we were looking at in the senior year, and were we threading them through in freshman, sophomore, junior, so that the students were developing the skills and they weren't seeing it for the first time in the senior year. So this is part of a cohesive plan that you would have at a school and that you would build out, and that's the work that I think Principal Shelton is doing, and it's not only at Jefferson. So I'm just saying, like, this, when you look at these trajectories, what is it that we want all students to demonstrate as seniors? And then you're like backwards planning to say, where are those opportunities for students to do that? So I think that is, it's very consistent across our district about where that happens. But it's not like that you're doing it in every area. There's specific trajectories that you're looking for when you're introducing an for all class.
That was really helpful. Thank you. And I'm really excited that we have belief in the competence and capabilities of all of our students, and that we're going forward with really high expectations. You have any more questions? All right. Well, I think that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As a reminder, the whole board will discuss the recommended proposal at the December 16th full board work session. We are planning for a board vote in January of 2026. Our next meeting of the Teaching, Learning, and Enrollment Committee is scheduled for January 8th. The meeting will focus on CTE, college and career readiness, and attendance. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.